On today's show, Max Strus needed foot surgery, and that's going to delay the start of his season. We'll talk about what that means for Max as well as what it means for the team on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say, as we get started here, thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, as we get started, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. The Cleveland Cavaliers were in the news on Tuesday because it was announced that Max Strus is going to be out for 3 to 4 months before he resumes basketball activity because he had to undergo a surgery on Tuesday to repair what is called a Jones fracture. Now, I will read the full statement from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then we'll dive into what this means, what this is, and just everything that I know so far. So, statement reads as follows. The Cleveland Cavaliers forward Max Strus underwent successful surgery today, again, Tuesday, to repair a Jones fracture, which is the 5th metatarsal in his left foot, suffered recently during an off-season training. The procedure was performed by Dr. David Porter in consultation with Cavaliers team physician Dr. James Rosnick at Fort Sports Medicine and Orthopedics in Indianapolis. Strus is expected to resume basketball activities in approximately 3 to 4 months. His status will be updated as appropriate. Obviously, this is a blow to the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is not the end of the world for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I do think that is something that needs to be pointed out. I saw on the internet, which of course is not a real place, but I saw on the internet on Tuesday, a lot of people freaking out. Listen, this is an injury. It sucks that it happens, but I think if you are the Cavs, if you are Max, if you're everybody involved here, you would prefer that this happened now as opposed to this happened in February. This, to me, I don't think it's something that should affect how we look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that as of right now, this injury does not change what their goals should be. This injury does not change what their expectations should be. This injury, it changes what they'll look like on opening night. No question. It changes what they'll look like for the first few months of the season because you go play that timeline game, right? Like it is right now as I record this, 10 o'clock on August 26th. So you go 1 month from now, September 26th, 2 months from now, October 26th. The season has started at that point. 3 months from now is right around Thanksgiving, November 26th. That is the earliest, according to this release, that Max Strus will return to game activity, which I think is an important thing to note, but will return to basketball activity. 4 months, of course, would be the day after Christmas. So to me, this seems as if Max Strus will not play in 2025. It seems to me like he will probably return, of course, and every recovery is different, but it seems like his return to game action will probably come in early 2026. And that is not that big of a deal for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, what I know about Max Strus's injury is, one, I am a little bit uniquely qualified to talk about this because I had this surgery twice. So as a little bit of backstory to me, I played college football, went to a Division II school named Lake Erie College out in Painesville, Ohio. I played wide receiver, and I had this injury twice. I had this surgery 2 times while I was in college, and the way the surgery works, I was not in Max's surgery. I've not seen x-rays, but just my best guess as to the way this surgery works is that because it's that 5th metatarsal, which is all the way on the outside of your foot. So if let's pretend that my hand is a foot, The break is right here, basically on your pinky. That is where the bone would be broken. My guess is that the doctors went in and they put a screw in to his foot to keep that bone, to stabilize that bone together so that it can heal. And they potentially also may have taken a bone graft from somewhere else, possibly his ankle, and wrapped it around to further strengthen that bone and promote just a little bit more healing. I've had the surgery done both ways. The way in which the bone was wrapped around it certainly proved to be better because I've had no issues since in the decade plus at this point since my most recent foot surgery. But that said, this is something that can kind of just happen. From what I was told, Max was injured during a 1-on-0 basketball workout. This was not, he didn't step on somebody's foot and turn an ankle. This was a non-contact thing. And this can happen partially because you might have a stress reaction in that foot. I know how it happened for my first one. I had a stress reaction in my left foot and I was running sprints at football workouts. And one day my foot just snapped. The bone just snapped. I don't know if that's exactly how it happened with Max, but I don't think that should be some surprising thing, certainly given my experience. And we have seen other guys in the NBA that have dealt with this. We've seen other guys in sports that have dealt with this. Kevin Durant had this injury way back when he was with Oklahoma City. I believe Des Bryant, then of the Dallas Cowboys, had this injury at a certain point. This is an injury that it sucks. Like there's not a good way to really heal from it, because if you think about the way your foot is set up, and I was not anticipating this podcast being as, medically focused, I guess, as it is, but there's not a lot of blood circulation to that part of your foot. So this can be a little bit of a slow healing process. I would anticipate Max is probably going to be non-weight bearing for a little while here. It'll probably be on crutches and a walking boot, maybe even in a cast for a little bit. But I don't think that this is going to be something that lingers. I do look at this. If you want to look at the bright side, when Max is back, provided there are no setbacks throughout his recovery, which of course they happen. It's not necessarily anybody's fault if that does happen. But if there are no setbacks through his recovery process, and let's say we get to that 4-month mark and Max Strus is starting to ramp up and he's getting close to being on the floor again, this is something that when he starts playing, and of course there will be an adjustment period and he will have to work himself back into shape. And that's because, when you have an injury like this, he's not going to be able to run for a few months. Like that is going to be the biggest part of this. But this isn't an injury like a torn muscle or a torn ligament where there can be a pretty big adjustment period or risk of re-injury. I don't look at this injury as that type of thing. I think that once this is healed, it'll most likely be healed. And I think that is one of the things that is a good sign with this injury. That if you want to look at the bright side of it, and of course, you never want to see somebody get injured, but the fact that it happened now is much better than it happening in February, where then he would miss the rest of the regular season and potentially the playoffs for the Cavaliers. And two, I do think this is an injury where, yes, you can re-injure it. No injury has a 100% success rate, but I don't think that this is going to be something that is that big of an issue moving forward. And I just do think, too, it's worth bringing up. The Cavs started last season without Max Strus. Remember, he didn't play a game until December 20th. That was his first game that he played last year. I believe it came against the Milwaukee Bucks. And you might remember that the Cleveland Cavaliers were pretty good in that time. They were 23-4 in the 27 games that Max Strus missed to begin the season. And they were good when Max was on the floor. They were good when Max was off the floor. And this is not trying to diminish the value that Max Strus brings, because I do ultimately think the Cavaliers are a better team when Max Strus is playing basketball for them, when he's available for them. I think they are a better team with Max Strus than without Max Strus. But last year when Max played, they went 39-11, which is a very, very good record. Last year when Max Strus did not play, they went 25-7, and a big chunk of those games came to start the season. And even that is a little bit misleading, because two of the losses that the Cavs had without Max Strus came in the last week of the season. One was the final regular season game where they lost in overtime to the Indiana Pacers. Maybe double overtime. I think it was actually double overtime. So they lost that game, which truthfully, nobody else played. If you look at that, Jared Allen played, I think it was 40 seconds to ensure that he played in all 82 games, but that was a game in which none of the Cavs regulars played. And they also lost the other game they played to Indiana near the end of the regular season, where many of their starters didn't play. It wasn't everybody didn't play, but a lot of guys did not play. And if you think back, that was, I believe Sam Merrill had a great game, or maybe it might have been somebody else that had a great game that game, but they almost beat the Pacers starters, despite the fact that really none of the Cavs starters other than Jared Allen, I believe, played in that game. So for all intents and purposes here, they were 25-5 when Max Strus didn't play last year. Again, this is not to diminish his value because, like I said, I think the Cavs are a better team when Max Strus is on the floor as opposed to when Max Strus is hurt and not available. But I don't think this is the end of the world. You could make an argument that the depth in the backcourt is really going to be tested because not only is Max going to miss the start of the season, but I think it is at this point probably fair to assume that Darius Garland is not suiting up opening night. I think the Cavs would probably be in their best interest to not rush him back from his own offseason foot surgery that he had a 4 to 5 month timeline that happened earlier in June. So maybe the backcourt depth will be tested. I think that's a very fair thing to point out, but I don't think that this should be viewed as the end of the world or like DEFCON 1 for the Cavs. I think that, yes, it's an injury. It's an unfortunate injury, but it's something that does come at the right time if it has to happen. And the one final stat I'll point out as far as things go with Max having to miss time and it not being the end of the world. So last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers outscored opponents by 7.8 points per 100 possessions with Max Strus on the floor. This is according to Cleaning the Glass. So they had a net rating of plus 7.8 when Max Strus played on the floor for them. When Max Strus was not on the floor, so this does include that games he did not play in at all, also when he's sitting on the bench in a game that he's active in. The Cavaliers were plus 10.8 per 100 possessions. So there is an argument. Again, I don't subscribe to the Cavs being better without Max Strus. I don't subscribe to that. But there's an argument to be made that they have other ways they can attack teams and that they can be just as, if not more effective when they don't have Max. And I think if you want to look at the bright side, that is certainly part of it. Now, Max Strus's injury is a bummer for the Cavs, but I do think it provides an opportunity for 3, maybe 4 people in specific. I'll tell you who those are and what that opportunity is next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, something else. They don't necessarily know the full picture. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And let's be real, nobody wants to leave any money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money, because it is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch built for people with busy lives like me, very busy person over here. So if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, where you can link all your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, which is something I find to be very helpful. And you can finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. No one wants to be thought of as a spreadsheet nerd. Monarch Money can handle that for you. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Right now, use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. Again, that's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com by using code LOCKEDONNBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. And like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And also, do need to let you know, Locked On has a very important and very special request. They want to hear from you. Right now, we've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and to make your favorite podcasts, like hopefully this one, even a little bit better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. And everyone who completes a survey will be entered for your chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. It seems like a pretty good reward for just going to fill out a survey. Again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, just scan that QR code that is right below my finger right now. And thank you so much for helping us out. Like I said, Max Strus's injury is a bummer for the Cavs, but it's also an opportunity for a few different people, I think, both on the team, and the one I want to talk about first is Kenny Atkinson, because one of the things last year that I think disappointed a lot of people, and I understand this, was the lack of a sample size that we saw of DeAndre Hunter with the quote-unquote core four. Hunter alongside Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. We didn't get as much of that post-trade as I think a lot of people would have liked. Now, if you remember, DeAndre Hunter was a starter in his very first game back with the Cavs. It was a game in which Max Strus did not play. It was at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Cavs raced out to a 15-0, I believe it was, start against the Wolves. And Hunter was, I thought, very good in this game. And Hunter overall for the Cavs last year did a lot of really good things. He shot the ball exceptionally well during the regular season. During the postseason, he had some very good moments against Miami Heat, and I would have loved to have seen what he would have done against the Indiana Pacers had he not dislocated his thumb during game one of that series at Rocket Arena. So I do think that this, even if the Cavs will not be fully healthy on opening night, pending Darius Garland's foot injury, we know Max is not going to be available that night. But even if they won't be available fully on opening night, I would imagine that Darius Garland will be back and available for the Cavs prior to Max Strus returning. I just think that the way that his timeline sets up, where he was 4 to 5 months, that is November. 5 months, like the long end of that is November for him, where the long end of it for Max Strus is December, late December, early January. Now, let's say that Max comes back on the short end of his rehab and Darius is on the long end of his rehab. Then you are looking at them maybe being around the same time. But even then, I would anticipate that Darius Garland is available to the Cavs a little bit sooner than Max Strus is. So what I do think this gives Kenny Atkinson a real opportunity to do is in extended times, if health allows for it, I think this gives him an opportunity to really get an extended look at what that DeAndre Hunter plus the core four lineup looks like. I think that should be the starting group. And on tomorrow's show, I'll probably dive in a little bit more to who opening night starter should be, what the rotation should look like, given the questions that we know about the injuries that the Cavs have. But I think this really does serve as an opportunity for Kenny Atkinson to give that some runway, to give that some real time to mesh together, to gel together, and really just be out there and play basketball in a way that I don't know that that group got the time last year to do. And I understand why last year DeAndre Hunter was not put in the starting lineup. I think it's a really difficult thing, and you don't often see teams that make big mid-season trades win the title. You really don't see teams that trade for a starter during the regular season win the title. So I understand why DeAndre Hunter didn't start last year. I do think, this Max Strus injury aside, I think he should have been the starter for the Cavs at small forward. And now I don't know if this necessarily forces Kenny Atkinson's hand, because he does have other options. Like, he very easily could slide Dean Wade into that starting role. There are different ways that he could attack things. But I do look at this as a real opportunity for Kenny Atkinson, somebody who has pretty frequently in his time in Cleveland talked about wanting to compile data and leaning on numbers and things like that. I do think when you look at this, this gives the chance for the core four plus DeAndre Hunter to gather a pretty big sample size. And that, I think, is something that ultimately will be a pretty good thing. And I also look at this as an opportunity for DeAndre Hunter, because if he goes out there and is the starting small forward for the first, let's just say, 2.5 months of the season before Max Strus is available. 2.5 months would put us basically at the start of 2026. Cavs begin the season October 22nd. I don't need to do the calendar math to tell you that you're in January there. So let's say for the first 2.5 months of the season that DeAndre Hunter is the starting small forward, and he does really well. I don't think that that's going to be a role they want to move him out of. I think if he goes out there and he just takes command of that role, when Max Strus comes back, it's not as if Max is not going to be in the rotation. Of course, he's going to be in the rotation, and he should be in the rotation. But I look at this and say, okay, DeAndre was so good in the first 2.5 months, and maybe 1.5 of those months was alongside Darius and Donovan and Evan and Jarrett. I don't think the Cavs change things just to change things there. I think when you have somebody that fits as well as I believe DeAndre Hunter fits with that group, I don't think you make a change just for the sake of making a change. And I do kind of wonder if that's why they didn't make the change last year. But I think if DeAndre Hunter goes out there and has a very good start to the season for the Cavs, I could look at this and say, okay, the Cavs are not going to make a change just for the sake of making a change. And now their starting lineup is actually putting their best 5 players on the floor, because I do believe DeAndre Hunter to be one of the 5 best players that the Cavs have on the roster, and having him in the starting lineup, I do think ultimately would be one of the best things that the Cavs could do. Now, there are a couple more guys that I think have an opportunity here. Plus, let's talk about what impact this has on the Cavs as far as whether or not they can win the title, because I don't think it's very big, and somebody important agrees with me. We'll do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first watch today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you are watching on YouTube, the best way you can help grow the channel is to make sure you hit that subscribe button. And also, while you're there, click that notification bell and hit the thumbs up button on this video. I think the person that might have the most to gain from I feel bad saying it that way, but maybe the person with the biggest opportunity here is Jaylon Tyson, because I look at him and he was drafted 20th overall at this point, like 14 or 15 months ago, and couldn't find his way into the rotation last year. And I don't think that says anything about Jaylon. I think that says much more about how good the Cavs were during the regular season last year. I mean, they won 64 games. It's not often that teams that are that good, that compile that many wins, have a rookie that is regularly playing, that is impacting winning. So Jaylon last year, most of his experience was sitting on the bench and watching. Of course, he played in some G League games with the Charge. I thought he had a very good summer league this year before he was shut down after, I believe it was 3 games that he played. And I think that this is an opportunity for him to really carve out a role in the NBA. Now, when Max gets back, I don't know if there's going to be room for him. As I have said multiple times, even before this Max Strus injury, even before Darius Garland's injury, as the Cavs were kind of formulating what their summer would look like, everyone in the rotation is not going to play 82 games. I would bet that nobody in the rotation plays 82 games. I just think it's very unlikely that that happens. And the start of the season, now I would expect Jaylon Tyson to be in the rotation. We have seen how deep Kenny Atkinson likes to play his rotations, especially in the regular season. I think this is a big opportunity for Jaylon to go out there and prove, hey, I have grown a lot as a basketball player since I was drafted. I'm ready to be in the rotation on a really good NBA team. And it could also start to tell us a little bit about Tyson's future, because he could ultimately be a Max Strus replacement. I'm not saying that he's going to replace Max this year. This is not a Wally Pipp scenario where Max gets hurt and Jaylon just comes in and steals his minutes and we never hear from Max again. That's not going to happen. But I do think ultimately a year or 2 from now, Max Strus might not be on the Cavs, and Jaylon Tyson might be assuming that role. I'm not saying Jaylon's going to be a starter, but that sort of connector type of role, the guy, the wing rebounder that, you know, he doesn't have the same exact skill set that Max has, because Jaylon is not a movement shooter the way that Max can be, and the Cavs have used him as such. But I look at him and say, okay, he can do a lot of the things that Max Strus can do. He is a little bit bigger than Max too, which I do think is important for the way the Cavs are built. Having Jaylon Tyson's size, I think, could be a really good thing for them. So I look at this and say, the door is open for Jaylon Tyson to come in during the regular season right from the rip and announce himself as an NBA caliber rotation player. And if that is the case, when Max comes back, Max is still going to play. He's still in the rotation. As I talked about with DeAndre, I don't know that he'll necessarily start, but I think that this gives Kenny Atkinson more options. And this does, I think, too, make life easier. Those are good decisions to have to make. I think it makes life easier for the Cavaliers if Jaylon Tyson looks early on this season when Max is out as if, hey, that's somebody that long-term, he's going to be somebody that helps us a lot. If the Cavs are saying that when Max gets back because Jaylon Tyson had a really good first 2 months of the season, I think that's a really good place to be. The one other person that I look at and say, okay, that opens the door for him is Tyrese Proctor. Now, Tyrese went number 48 overall, and it's not often, as I just got done saying with Jaylon, it's not often that a very good team counts on a rookie to contribute to winning. And when the playoffs roll around, I don't necessarily expect Tyrese Proctor to contribute a ton. Like, I would be very surprised right now on August 26th if Tyrese Proctor is in the playoff rotation for the Cavs. I think everybody watching and listening would probably be pretty surprised by that as well. But I do look at what Max could do for the Cavs, and I look at the one skill that we know Tyrese Proctor has at an NBA level, which is his shooting. And I also think about some other things here, because with Max out and Darius Garland potentially missing the start of the regular season, and Alonzo Ball being somebody that I would not anticipate plays in back-to-backs and might miss some time at a certain point this season. You know, you hope that he plays a lot of games, but history would tell you that he's probably not going to be the most durable guy, and the Cavs are banking on him being able to be healthy and helpful in the playoffs. And if that comes at the sacrifice of some regular season games, that is a trade that the Cavs should and willingly will make time and time again. This could open up some playing time for Tyrese Proctor, because I do think the Cavs will miss the connectedness that Max Strus brings to the floor, but I think they'll miss his shooting as well. And that is the thing that I don't know Jaylon Tyson can replace, but I do wonder if Tyrese Proctor can replace, because I don't think that they are going to want to rely on Sam Merrill. And this could be something that maybe opens up the door. And of course, Tyrese Proctor needs to go through his first NBA training camp. We need to see what everything looks like for him. But if all goes well, the rest of this season or the rest of this offseason, I should say, into training camp, into the preseason, this could be a real opportunity for Tyrese Proctor to come in right away and earn some playing time, because the Cavs rotation is just a little bit thin now with Max Strus and Darius Garland potentially as well, sidelined for a good chunk of the start of the regular season. Now, the one last thing I wanted to touch on today, anytime something like this happens, anytime the Cavs are in the news, whether it's for Darius Garland's injury or Max Strus's injury, or even the team having interest in Malik Beasley, the thing I do is I will pull up FanDuel. I'll go to FanDuel.com, or I'll open up the FanDuel Sportsbook app on my phone, and I will look and see what the Cavs championship odds are and what their odds to win the Eastern Conference are, because I do think that's a good barometer of how important a certain event is, whether it's an injury, a transaction, whatever. I think this is just something it's worth looking at. And I looked the other day because of the Malik Beasley stuff. It's like, you know what? I wonder if, and it didn't move things at all. So prior to the Max Strus injury, the Cavs had the second best odds in the NBA to win the finals at plus 700. Only team with better odds is Oklahoma City at plus 230. I looked at their odds to win the Eastern Conference. They had the best odds to win the Eastern Conference at plus 230. The New York Knicks plus 280 right behind them. And then I checked again on Tuesday afternoon after this news was announced. The Cleveland Cavaliers to win the Eastern Conference are still the favorites at plus 230. The Cleveland Cavaliers to win the NBA Finals still have the second best odds at plus 700. So while this move is one that is going to impact the start of the regular season for the Cavs, it's going to impact what the rotation looks like. It might cost them a win or two here or there in October, November, December, maybe even January. But what I don't think this injury does is changes what this Cavs team is ultimately going to be. This is going to be a really, really good Cavs team. It's going to be a team that has lofty postseason expectations. Those things don't change because Max Strus is going to miss 25 to 35 games at the start of the season. If this were to happen in February, things might have changed. But because it happened in August, it's a bummer for Max. It's a bummer for the Cavs. But ultimately, I don't think this changes much as far as who the 2025-2026 Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be. So I am tomorrow going to talk, as I mentioned the other day on the show, going to talk a little bit more Malik Beasley. I wonder if this opens up the door a little bit more, but I ultimately think money is going to be the main thing there. Plus, we will dive into what some of the potential starting lineups for the Cavs to start the season could be, given not only Max's injury, but also the Darius Garland injury. So as we get out of here, I would ask you, if you are watching on YouTube, if you've not subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe. It is the best way to help grow Locked On Cavs. Also, hit that thumbs up button as we get out of here. And if you are listening, whatever podcast app you are on, do me a favor, hit subscribe, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. That is how you can help grow Locked On Cavs. And I will be back tomorrow again, talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.